Welcome to Digitally Creative. I'm your host, Vincent Ferrari, and joining me this week, you may have gotten the hint here, is my good friend and longtime supporter of the podcast, Mr. Keith Drennan, aka Blackthorn Concepts. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
All right. I feel like it's been years since you were on Because We Make, and I think it might actually have been because you were on with
It
Ethan.
was.
So it's been a minute.
I wasn't on with Ethan. I took the place of Ethan.
Oh, right. You were my co-host. That's
I
right.
was a
You weren't even a
co-host.
guest that week. We
I
had
wasn't a
Steve
guest.
on.
My first time as a guest.
Right.
I'm
Your
honored.
first time as a guest was a co-host. That's right. Not many people could say that, by the way. That's a pretty impressive accomplishment.
Yeah.
So, how's things going, man? I've been
Busy.
watching you blow up. It's kind of great.
Slowly blowing up, but yeah.
Slowly blowing up. It's like a slow explosion.
Yeah. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah. Working Hands podcast is doing really well. I'm wearing my official Working Hands podcast.
I love it.
I'm wearing the shirt. I had the hand. I mean, I'm ready to go.
Foam hand. That's key right there.
I was thinking about, like, I've been wearing, because, I've been promoting like a whore. I've been promoting my own merch. So I've been wearing the Digitally Creative shirt every week. And then I was like, no, wait. I put it on and I was like, no, wait. I got a much better shirt for this. And I was like, well, if you're going to wear the shirt, you got to get the foam finger in the picture, because the foam finger, I mean, this is just so classic. Like, everyone loves foam fingers.
Yeah. I don't think we're getting them again for next year, this year.
I should tell everyone where I got this from, because, people may know, and people who have listened to this podcast long enough know that I got to see you at Maker Camp.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason I was at Maker Camp was because you were utterly relentless in telling me how much I was going to love it. You were very kind, but it was
I know
pressure.
You keep saying that all the time. It wasn't that much peer pressure, just a daily text. That's all it was.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, just for the record, at the time, I wasn't dating anyone. And I was hearing from Keith more than I was hearing matches from Match.com. So
well, I don't know if it was that much, but of all the people I know that should be at Maker Camp, it was you. You live close enough.
I know.
There's no reason why you shouldn't have been there.
Well, you know what it was, dude. And I'm just telling you the God's honest truth. I was treating it like this big thing where it was like, oh, I'm going to go up there and, like, it's going to be a long drive up and a long drive back. And it was a really long drive, because the traffic coming back on a Sunday night is miserable. I mean, you're further south than I am.
Yeah.
But you know what? Honestly, I'm looking forward to this year. I'm not just going to be there one day. I'm going to be there all 3 days. I'm going to actually do some stuff this time. It's not just going to be me there.
Are you camping?
Nah, I probably wouldn't camp. I might actually just, Al has mentioned that they have a guest bedroom that's open to me, so I might just stay by Al, because he's just across the river.
Oh, over in like Hudson?
Yeah, close. He's in Germantown. So it's like, it's perfect. I could just run over there, and it's like 20 minutes away. So
yeah,
I'm thinking it might be good. Kathy wants to come too, so it'd be cool to have me and Kathy. We can hang out with Al and Rebecca. She can get to meet my friends at Maker Camp. Like, it would just be an awesome all-around weekend. But yeah, you did it, man. You got me. I'm hooked. I'm totally into it, and now I'm actually looking forward to it this year. So that's awesome.
Good. Yeah.
How did you become I don't want to say you're a spokesperson, because clearly you're not. They don't pay you to, but you've become, as far as the people we all know, because you and I run in the same circles, basically this cluster of Northeast makers. We're kind of in that same group.
Right.
How did you get to be, like, I can't think of the right words. I'm just gonna call you the mouthpiece for Maker Camp. Like, you're Maker Camp's #1 advocate that isn't Jimmy DiResta. So how did it get to be that you kind of became the voice of Maker Camp? Because you clearly are.
I mean, I love the event, so I talk about it often. But I think early on, people confused the fact that I was Blackthorn Concepts.
I don't know what you're talking about. I totally didn't do that.
And it's the Blackthorn Resort. So
I legitimately
talking
thought
about
you
it
were
and posting
connected, by the way.
Yeah, no relation. So yeah, and then I have a podcast where I talk about it. So
yeah, everybody that's connected to you goes to Maker Camp. It's funny. It's like, oh yeah, they're talking about Maker Camp.
Or I'm just connected to only people that go to Maker Camp.
Okay, yeah, we could be cart.
There's two sides of that coin.
That's true. We have to figure out which is the cart and which is the horse. But your enthusiasm for it is kind of infectious. Like you and Tony run the maker swap, which
Yeah.
I got to say was, of all the things I saw going on when I was there last summer, it was a big freaking deal. Like I was expecting it to be, a happening. I wasn't expecting it to be a massive happening that when you guys said you were gonna start drawing names, that literally it sucked the air out of the room and everybody
Yeah.
was hovering around the tables to see what they were gonna get.
It's
But
pure chaos at
it's
the
wo
swap time. Yeah.
it was wonderful though, and
Oh, yeah.
people I the one thing that I keep saying it, but the one thing that blew my mind is what people brought. Like, when you tell people bring their best, I
Yeah.
would say about 95% of what was up there was the best made handmade stuff that I've ever seen in person. Like, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. I try and push the bring your best, bring your skills
Mhm,
aspect of it
mm,
because it's one of those things that, like the whole reason why we created it was anyone can take a good photo of something, right?
sure,
Put it up on the internet.
sure.
But to show off your best and like not just to a customer who probably doesn't know how to make, but to another maker, like you
Yeah,
want to bring your best, show it off, and people do because
they
it's going
really
maker
do.
to maker. So it's pretty wild what people can bring and what they do.
And how much. I mean, I was amazed, not just the quality of the stuff, but how much stuff you got. I mean, you guys have really turned this into, like, a major part of Maker Camp. This is like, there's a lot of people participating. And I think one of the coolest parts, one of the coolest parts for those people is that not only you participating, you're getting to show off your best, but then you're gonna get something on that table.
Hmm.
I mean, I can
Yeah,
see people walking around and like looking at stuff, and you can almost feel them going like, "Man, I hope I win that. Man, I hope I win that. Man, I hope I win that."
yeah. I mean, Tony and I kind of have the front seat to it. Like
Hmm.
we get to see everything come across the table. We try and leave it out for display, but even if you're on display, you're probably not looking at everything that's on that table.
Right.
But
I don't think you could see everything that's out on that table.
yeah, it's tough. Um, the good thing is though that throughout the day you should stop by if
Hmm.
everything's out and come take a look. And some people make some pretty amazing stuff.
My fear about making anything for the swap was totally confirmed when I saw the quality of the stuff there. I'm like, I can't compete with any of this stuff, and
Come on,
I'm
you
not gonna
making something
lie.
for 23?
I
Yeah,
I'll
you're right.
see. I'll see.
Come on,
I have a couple of ideas. I have a couple of ideas, a couple of new things I wanna try, and I'm thinking, like, if I can get these things dialed in, then I would totally do it. I don't I have no confidence when it comes to hanging with other makers. I mean,
stop.
I know the stuff I do is great. I know I'm happy with the stuff I make, but I also know that it's a different, like you were saying, it's a different standard when you bring your stuff to other makers, and you're swapping
Yeah,
with people. Most of the people who are in our circle of people make what I make. They just do. I mean, it's just, and I'm fine with that. I'm not offended by that. It doesn't make me feel bad. It's just, if I made a cutting board and brought it to Maker Camp, people would be like, I could have made that. Like, it's
so
my
what?
design, it's my professionalism, it's going to have my finish, it's going to be one of my boards. It's going to be cool. I know it'll be cool, but it's also something that it's within the skill set of almost everyone there to make. So, I
That's
don't
not
know.
true. That's not true. Because you got a lot of metal people or jewelry people or
That's true.
epoxy people who may not own a table saw. They can't make a cutting board,
That's true.
you
I
know?
see. This is the thing. I'm
And
so inside my own head, by the way. See, do you see how it's
get
coming
out
out
of
of
your
my mouth?
head.
You're like my therapist.
Yeah. I mean, I have this conversation with a lot of people throughout the
Hmm.
year. They're like, "Oh, I'm not going to do the swap. I make this, I make that." And there was a friend of ours from Woolly Petal Designs
Hmm.
who makes like woolly flowers or something.
Okay.
And she also makes wooden signs and stuff. But she's up in Canada and she's coming this year. And she's like, I would like to make my flowers, but I think that's too girly. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, I
Make it.
think.
If that's what your skill set is, that's what you need to bring,
Hmm.
right? It may not have to be a flower, but if you make something out of soft materials, do it. Bring it. Who cares if it's girly? There's girls in the thing, right?
Right.
And she was so in
Plenty.
her head about that. And I'm like, just make whatever, like whatever your skill set is, bring it.
Do you think that's,
If
I mean, you heard it from me, you heard it from her. Do you think that, You think this is a problem, like, in general for us as makers where we are I mean, let's be honest, we are all in our own heads, like, deeply. Do you think it's like a general, like, a mental condition that we all seem to have?
Well, probably, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, what I brought last year, I brought a bunch of hand carved spoons
Mhm.
and a metal coffee scoop I made out of copper. And after seeing what came across the table, I was kind of sheepishly embarrassed about what I brought. So
That's what I don't
no,
want to happen.
I don't think it's an oddball thing. I think most people are like that.
You think it's
So
just a matter of just, like, get over it. Like, we all feel the same way, just get over it.
yeah, but I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, look what he made,"
Mhm.
or "Look what that guy made."
It's true, you don't hear a lot of people going, "Oh, they didn't even try." Like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Eh, you hear some, but
Some.
not
Well,
much.
there's always gonna be rumblings, right? There's always gonna be
Right.
rumblings,
But the
but
idea of the swap is that you bring your skill set and whatever your skill set is. So if you're
mhm,
a newbie beginner, if you have newbie listeners who are just coming to Maker Camp for the first time
mhm,
and they just got a table saw for the first time, whatever they make is their skill set. So
sure.
bring the top of your skill set, whatever you're best at, make a product that's based on what you're best at and roll with it.
Do you so I know that you and Tony have talked about this in the past with Maker Camp. Do you wish that you hadn't started the swap so that you could kinda go more as a civilian? Because I feel
Yeah.
like it probably monopolizes a ton of your time. And it's only a 3-day event. So, like, does it ever
Yeah.
bug you that, like, you do a really cool part of it, it's an integral part, it's a part that everyone looks forward to, right? But do you ever wish, like, "Why the hell did I do this to myself? Like, I'll never enjoy Maker Camp the way a civilian would." Like, do you ever have that feeling?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. But one of the main things people talk about to me all year is the swap.
Is the swap.
So,
Right, right.
uh, as much as it eats up Maker Camp for me,
Mhm,
I enjoy all the small events that he runs,
mhm.
the hammer ins and stuff. So I'll go
Yeah,
to
you go to, like,
those.
everything up there. You're always going up there for something or other. It's kinda cool too.
Yeah, I'll be up there this weekend for the hammer in, which will be after this airs. But yeah,
Yeah, you so for those of you, this is we're recording this on May 18th. Um, Keith literally landed, got home, and got on. We're gonna make it dramatic, Keith. That's what you did.
yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't land. I came into port. I got home.
Oh, you
Yeah,
you cruised from up here.
yeah, Bayonne. Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah,
that's right. You're far enough south where you could do something like that. Yeah, Keith and I are both Jersey boys for everyone listening.
yeah.
Keith is a little bit further south. Actually, I waved as I went past you coming home last night from Philly.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I was telling Keith I had my first trip to Philly that wasn't like business. Like it was just Kathy was going there because Kathy works remotely,
All right.
and she every couple of weeks she has to go into the office. So it was suggested that she bring me along. So I got to go to Philly for a couple of days, and it was a whole hell of a lot of fun.
What part of Philly were you in?
North. So her office is in Northeast Philly, and I
Okay.
was in Ben Salem. We were staying in Ben Salem. So
Okay.
I got to see, like, I got to do some cool things. One of the things will actually be my thing of the week, but I got to tell you, the one thing we did do that was really, really, like, really cool, and it had me going, I could totally live here, was we went to Bristol,
I
the
don't know
town
what
of
that is.
Bristol. It's right on the Delaware River. It was founded in like 1681. It's like a super old school, like Pennsylvania town, like a colony town. Like there's the King George VII bar is like one block off the water. It was established in like 1701. Like
Okay.
everything in this town is like old and beautiful. And and we were sitting in this waterside park eating fresh ice cream from a local ice cream place. And I was just sitting there going, this is a life I could totally see myself living. Like it was just such a great trip.
It's a cool town.
Yeah. I actually had
As
a
long
real
as you're not
Philly
there for
cheesesteak.
sports, it's cool.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about the sports out there. No,
Okay.
no,
All right.
no.
All right.
Hell no. But I mean, Keith and I are
Cheesesteaks,
both
though.
Mets fans, so
Yeah.
needless to
We
say,
wallow in our own pity.
exactly. I was telling someone I was telling one of Kathy's friends last night at dinner that you want to talk about loyalty. I'm a Knicks fan, a Mets fan, I'm a Devils fan, and a Jets fan. Like
Mm,
I understand suffering, okay?
that is a rough go. At least I'm a Giants fan, so I have that going for me,
It's
or
the
had that
one.
going for me for a
I was gonna
while.
say, yeah, you had that going for you. It hasn't
Yeah,
been
not
going for
anymore.
you for a while.
Not anymore.
It's rough. It's rough up here, sports wise. I've everyone I know is a Yankee fan, of course, because the Mets fans are more of the Queens type people, but
Yeah,
everyone I know seems to be a Yankees fan. It's like, and I just sit there going, yeah, it's tragic, tragic.
must must be tough. Must be
it's,
tough to be a Yankees fan.
it's horrible. It's horrible. Well, I mean, as usual, it's only May, so there are no Yankee fans. Yankee fans, you don't usually see them till September, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Met
I'm I,
fans you don't see after June.
I'm
After
so
the
get
All-Star game, we all disappear, so it's
I'm
fine.
so getting my ass kicked after this episode, by the way. I can hear her writing shit down so she can repeat it to me after we're done recording.
Is she a Yankee fan?
Yeah.
Oh, God bless that household.
I'll tell you what. We make it work. We make it work.
At
So,
least mine's a Met fan, so I look out for him.
obviously, I came on here wearing all the working hands regalia, and the podcast is like you guys have great guests, and you and Tony seem to have found your groove. I miss Chad. I've said this from the
W
beginning. I miss Chad.
Everybody misses Chad,
I miss
yeah.
Chad. Anyone who can fix a toilet with 5-minute epoxy is a guy that I just miss. It was, and not having him around and that goofball energy is,
Uh,
obviously it's hard to replace, right? But I think like you and Tony have really found your groove, like since he's gone, and the show's a little different now. It's not
yeah,
as
it's like
kind
we
of
had to start it's almost like we had to start over after
yeah,
Chad left.
kind of. That's
The whole energy changed,
the
yeah.
energy change. That's what I was gonna say. The energy change. Like there was kind of a silly, goofy energy that Chad always brought. And I know Chad is a serious maker. I'm not saying he's not a serious maker. I want to make sure I'm
Yeah,
100% clear
yeah.
about that.
He played a part. He played a part.
Yeah, exactly. A
Yeah.
guy that literally fixed a toilet tank with 5-minute epoxy is not, you know, he's
The
not
last
doing
I
it
heard,
because,
it's still holding.
which
So,
is offensive to me, but okay.
yeah.
But you guys have really kind of found a groove now, the two of you. You kind of Tony's kind of come out of his shell a little bit.
Oh my
He's
God, has he? Yeah.
right, like it's
Yeah.
funny, like he's talking more, and so
There's
he's talking it
episodes where I
all.
say like 3 words.
So how did
It's pretty
that?
good.
I mean, when Chad said he was leaving, like I know he was doing some of the editing for you guys.
Mhm. Mhm.
Actually was doing the editing of the show. It was his job, and then you started taking that over. Like, what was it like to transition out of someone, transition away from him doing all that stuff to you guys doing it, and then having to kind of reframe the energy of the show and all that? Was it what was it like?
Well, the editing part, luckily, um, when he left, he said, "I'll do 1 or 2."
Mm-hmm.
So I got my bearings. I had a couple weeks to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Chad sent me a bunch of cheat sheets. This is what I do. This is how I
Excellent.
do it. This is the program I use. So that was all cool. But
Cool.
it was still a learning curve. Like
Sure.
I went from editing for like 4 hours down to now. I'm almost editing like Chad. I'm almost down to like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, because you edit the same way I do. I mean, well, when I used to do audio, you guys edit the same way. It's like just if there's something that needs to be cut, cut it. Otherwise, just let it roll. Just
Yep.
let the show go. If there's a big, huge gap, obviously, just cut that down a little bit, but let it kind of
Yeah.
basically doing like live to tape as they used to call it in TV.
Right.
But no,
Which
it's
is
great.
nice because it keeps the energy of the show, whatever is happening as we record, is what's going out there. It's not heavily edited. So
Exactly. Do
that part's
you
good. And I was already posting everything, so I still do that.
did you find it hard to because I know I didn't notice anything like particularly off when it's kind of started the first episode without Chad. Did you find it hard to kind of like refocus and reframe the show a little bit? Because again, that goofy energy is hard to replace. It's like, and you guys
Yeah.
just said, we're just not going to replace it. We're not going to try to find new Chad. We're just going to be
Nope. I
Tony
mean,
and
you
Keith,
can't
which
find a new Chad.
well,
Chad's Chad.
exactly, and
So
that's I think a lot of podcasts would struggle with that, right? Like when Ethan left because we make, I took Brooke became my co-host, and I wasn't looking to find Ethan too. The energy with Brooke was totally different. The show was
right.
very different. It was a very different show, and she brought a whole different like mindset and frame to the show. But I wasn't trying to go. I need to replace Ethan. It was like, I need a co-host.
Right.
And I kind of like the way you guys just kind of like, okay, so that energy is kind of gone. So we're going to
Yeah.
do a different show. And you guys now there's a lot more, almost like you guys have kind of developed a better rapport with each other because you
Yeah.
have to talk with each other. You have the one thing you do that I'm really jealous of, and even when I had a co-host, we didn't do it very often, is you guys do a lot of shows. It's just you and him,
Yep. Yep.
which I really have a lot of respect for because I know how tricky that can be. Like, you sit there with a guest, it's easy to go, what are we going to talk about? The guest has something going on, or you wouldn't have them on, right? When you have
Right.
each other, it's like, what in God's name are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, the weird thing is with Tony and I, we are working, like we have jobs.
hmm
So
You
we
bragging?
don't make
You trying to
as
say
much.
something here?
No, 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 no. We're not full-time makers
Right.
is my point.
Sure.
No one wants to hear about my day job,
Mhm.
right? So if it was just us every week,
Mhm.
we'd run out of stories.
You would
You know what I
totally
mean?
run out of stories. 100%.
So we'll have a guest on, and then we try and keep it off of us.
Mhm.
Inevitably, every guest is always like, "So what's going on with you guys?
Yeah.
What's going on in your shop?" I'm
I always
saving that for
find that
next week
I
because
always
I
find that
only
so interesting. Your guests always do that to you. It's almost like they're programmed to. Like by being on your show that they come on and they're like somebody throws it back to you guys and I can almost hear you guys go, "No, not us. You."
yeah, but I'm not gonna edit that out. That takes
No,
too much time, so we're gonna roll with it.
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I like how, and I said it before, but I like how Tony's kind of come out of his shell a little bit. He's much more comfortable, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
He still doesn't say Artigiano Serio correctly, but that's a lost cause at this point.
I think at this point I think at this point, he's doing it on purpose.
I also enjoyed tremendously. So just so you know, I'm going to set the stage for you. So I'm up at Al's and we're working on this. We're refinishing a big table.
Okay.
It's like 12 feet by 6 feet, white oak, and it's like 8/4 white oak. Okay, the tabletop alone probably weighs about 350 pounds. I'm not
Oof.
exaggerating. And then underneath are these giant 2x2 or they might be 4x4 runners connecting all those slats of wood. And
Okay.
then they're wrapped in a steel cuff. Like this table's made like a tank. So that top weighs a ridiculous amount of money. So I'm sanding this thing and I'm going through my podcast one by one. Your show comes up, you and Tony are talking about whatever, and you get to that review. And I swear to you, I was
Oh,
like,
the
how long
infamous
can he
review.
do this? That's all I said was to myself, I'm like, how long can he do this? How long could he possibly do this? And I hear you just dying on the show, and it's cracking me up. And I first of all, I respect you tremendously for even cracking into that because you knew what was going to happen when you started reading that review. But
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
in God's name? First of all, do you know who wrote it? Do we actually know who wrote it? Or
I do know. Yeah.
okay, okay.
It's an account on Instagram called Hackthorn Concepts.
Oh, Jesus Christ! You have a parody account?
No, no, it's a troll account. It's my brother.
Oh
He's
God.
trolling.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
He created that account because he wanted to do um he wanted to do Make What You Fear, and
hmm
he needed a public account, so he wasn't going to use his personal account with all his kids on there and stuff.
Sure.
So he created a maker account, and he made one at one point, and it popped up in the feed, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "Yeah, I was going to make it Hackthorn, but my wife told me that's too trolly." And I was like, "No, do it. That's fantastic." So
That is
then he did it.
absolutely
But
phenomenal.
yeah.
I
So
love it.
for anyone that doesn't know what this review is,
Uh-huh.
I have a stuttering problem, and it hits me a lot when I'm reading with S's. So months ago, or maybe even a year ago, I put out a thing. If you write a review with S's, you could probably hear me stutter on the podcast. So a couple people did it. Hatch Made It did it. Matt
Mhm.
from Matt Serio did it, and then my brother he did one that was epic.
This is
For
a
me reading
magnum
it,
opus.
yeah, I read it, and it was not just S words, but S sounding words,
Mhm.
and I fumbled my way through it. It was a 10-minute read. That's how long this review
Yeah.
is.
So when you guys started doing the read, I looked at my phone. I'm like, I just got 10 minutes. Like, how much of a review is this? And then you started reading, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, I immediately saw what was happening, and my heart just sank. I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. And then the more you got into it, and even you started laughing as you were doing it. Like
Oh yeah.
you were laughing because you realized how preposterous the whole thing was. It was such a funny moment.
So I didn't want to pre-read the whole thing because I wanted. I mean, obviously, if somebody's going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
I want to stutter.
Sure, you want
Right. I
to
mean,
give them
that's
what
why
they're
people are
paying for,
doing it.
so to speak.
So if I pre-read it, then I may or may not stutter.
Mhm.
Right. So I just skimmed it. I was like, oh, this ain't too bad. I was like, maybe it'd be long enough to do a reel of, thinking it was like a 1-minute read. And then when I opened it on the podcast and I'm scrolling it, it felt like it was never going to end.
Oh my god, it was so good. Like, I think that level of authenticity, though, I think that's why people like you and Tony, like, you guys have had some moments where, you know, I think the little flubs or the little mispronunciations or stuff like that, or you'll say something silly and it just gets left in. I think that's one of the reasons your podcast is so good. That's one of the reasons I've been supporting it for as long as I have,
We
because you
appreciate it.
guys there's something about the rawness of your show that is unique. Like, it's not, and I say this with love because some people get offended if I say stuff like this, but it's not like
Oh, I don't care.
polished, edited, you know,
Mm-mm.
perfectly timed. Like, if there's a long pause, awkward pause, there's an awkward pause in the recording. If you guys say something
Yep.
untoward, it's in the recording. If you
Yep.
guys crack each other up, every laugh makes the recording. Like, I love that about your show. It's amazing, honestly.
We try and be, what's the word? Authentic, I guess.
Mhm.
But
Is that your answer to, like, was it intentional, or was it just like, we're just gonna be 3 friends on a mic and whatever happens, happens? Like, or did you set out to be just a little bit less polished than everybody else?
I don't know if less polished is like, I don't think we ever said, oh, let's be less polished.
Right. No, I mean,
Right.
you don't say it, but it's like you just more like more colloquial, more just
Right.
conversational.
I wanted to do a podcast for a while, and
Mhm.
then I had met Chad at the first maker camp and Tony at the first maker camp. But Chad and I, we kind of bonded talking over podcasts. So
Mhm.
I don't know, like maybe a month after, I was like, "Hey man, let's do a podcast." He's like, "I don't know," and then he's like, "Maybe," and then I finally talked him into it. You know, as I
Mhm.
peer pressure everyone.
I mean, because that's what you
So
do. You bully.
apparently, apparently,
You got a reputation over
so
here, buddy.
we did it and we tried it with just the two of us, and it was all right, but
Mhm.
we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't put out any of those episodes. And then we're like, we need a third person. So then
Mhm.
we got Tony in, and then we recorded like a fake episode. Like we knew it wasn't going out. And I was like, all right, this is it. This is going to work.
This
And
is
they're
the
like,
formula.
yeah,
We found it.
yeah. And then we originally tried it with topics. If you go
Mhm.
back to the first few, and the first probably 10 episodes are kind of rough, like real rough. I don't know
Mhm.
how anyone is still following us after those. But we kind of found our groove and just got rid of topics and just went with it and
Just
just
have a
wing it. And
conversation.
yeah, we try and do it like what's Tony and I always say? We say we want it to be like a couple friends hanging out in the shop.
Well,
And if you're in the shop, it's like you're part of the conversation, but you just can't chime in, you
that
know?
came across, like, when I first started listening. So it's very funny. I knew you, and I knew of Working Hands podcast, but I had never listened, and I didn't know that that was your show. And as I heard it was your show, I'm like, well, I should be listening then. So I started listening, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And in the review I wrote, I said it's like being the fly on the wall in someone's shop. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, that's exactly the vibe you guys have created, and it's just two guys just hanging out. I always I It was really funny because in one episode, I think it was the guys from Green Street Joinery. Was it
Hmm.
them that they came in and they did the whole intro and the whole beginning of the show was the three of you, and it was amazing. It was amazing
Well,
because, like,
that was actually different. That was it was Jeff from Green Street. We had
mhm,
Green Street on, but then we decided to do a Trolling Hands episode,
mhm,
and we got Andrew Hatch from Hatch Made It.
mhm,
He played the Tony part, Corey Stanley of Odyssey CNC played
Chad?
Corey,
Oh, Corey, right.
or yeah,
He played
he played Chad,
right.
and then Jeff from Green Street, the
Mhm.
Jersey guy, he played me,
It was
and
really
they tried
funny.
to be us. Yeah,
It was
it,
hysterical because I was listening. I was driving home from somewhere, and I'm listening to it, and I'm going, "They sound weird." And then it clicked, it's like, "It's not them, that's why it sounds weird." And then I started getting into it, and then it's like, "This is
yeah,
amazing." Like, every does it like, I know that there are a couple of crutches I have, and does it, like, hit you when somebody else, like, nails all your crutches? It's like, "Oh, wow, they're visible to the world." Like, I forget.
uh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny.
It is, right?
Uh, it doesn't bother me at
No,
all.
it doesn't bother me either, like, believe me, I get it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
you kind of have to come pretty hard to offend me, so I was okay with it. But yeah, it was funny though that Jeff just kept opening beers as he's on a crack. uh,
he even held the, "Hey, heyo."
yeah, you know, you know. I
But
don't know if he stuttered on there. I'd have to go back and listen. That was a while ago.
I didn't know you stuttered because you never you don't really stutter on the show. I mean, you don't stumble more than the average person does, so you don't notice it. The only time you've noticed is when you started pointing out that, while you're reading reviews with S's in them, for
Yeah.
some reason, it just seems to pop up. But in general conversation, I wouldn't have known, you know?
Well, after 40 some years of dealing with stuttering, I just changed what I'm going to say or how I would say it
So do you like
with the
you're
words
like
that don't bother me.
so you're like constantly, because I have heard people say that, like, they're just constantly choosing their words very carefully so that,
Yep.
everything goes, wow,
Yeah.
it's got to be exhausting.
Yeah. That's why I give some people nicknames. Yeah. Yeah.
No nickname
So
that starts with S though.
there are some. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
Cool
have a
beans.
cousin Sarah I called Sally for years because I couldn't say Sarah without stuttering.
It's
So
great,
yeah.
man. I'm really I love when you like one of the things that's great about running with a crowd that's kind of in your same geographic area is you kind of bond over knowing the same people. And
Right.
what's really funny is how kind of everybody's congregated in the Makeshift Podcast Instagram group.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's amazing. I keep telling this to people. It's like, listen, if you want to join a group just to laugh, like, I don't chat much in there. I just watch everybody and I just crack up. Like, sometimes I'll need a laugh, and instead of loading TikTok, I just load that and start
Yeah.
scrolling through. There's somebody saying something funny in there at some point.
I don't want to give them a shameless plug. So after you have already supported Digitally Creative, and if Handmade by Vincent Ferrari has his own, let's do that. And after you've supported the Working Hands podcast and get our after show, then definitely your third dollar should go over to the Makeshift
It
podcast chat. I don't know how you get in there. It's a
you
Patreon
just gotta
thing.
you gotta get on. Yeah, once you're on their Patreon, they invite you.
At the right level, then they invite you in,
Yep,
and
worth
it
every
is
penny.
uh,
It's the funniest
it's
thing I'm in.
fantastic. What's
Uh,
crazy to me is Brad's Customs is from Oregon or California or
mhm.
something, and he's in there holding his own with the rest of us. I'm like, all right,
There's so many
like
inside.
I'm a West Coaster, but I fit in.
One of the things I love about, like, this group of people, this group that we're all part of, is there's so many inside jokes, and they just keep coming up over and over again. Like, Brad's Customs was just, for a while, he was just Brad. Like, and
Oh yeah, just Brad.
when they were reading his name on their podcast, it was like, blah blah blah, Brad.
Yeah,
That's it. He's just Brad. It's like, that's amazing.
it's
Like, I don't know
fantastic.
why that's funny, but it's funny.
He's clever. I
But
like that guy though.
there's some funny people in there. You're in there, I'm in there. Austin is there and throwing constant gifs, and then the constant references to Puffin, which, if you listen to the Makeshift Podcast, you know who Puffin is, which is just the greatest thing ever. I I love how everybody's. It's a little.
Who's evolved to pudding?
Now he's pudding, yeah.
Uh,
But I love how everybody has kind of, in this community, there's like little, I don't want to say cliques, because cliques has a negative connotation, but they kind of are cliques, but in a good way, where everybody's kind of formed their little groups. You have inside jokes, you have things that you all get that you don't have to explain. If you're new, it takes a minute to get traction and figure out what all the inside jokes are. It's kind of like listening to like a shock jock radio show at the beginning where you don't know all the players and all the inside jokes, and then within a couple of weeks of you're like, oh, I get everything now. This is amazing. This is the most fun I've
Yeah,
ever had. Um, all of us seem to be running a similar arrangement, so to speak. Um,
it's pretty cool.
yeah,
But
it's
I always wonder, like, did we just carve out a niche, right? Is there another niche that's just like ours, but somewhere else?
mm,
And they don't know about us and we don't know about them?
in the mirror universe, in the bizarro world. If you're a Superman fan,
Yeah. I was kind of listening to, well, I wasn't kind of, I was listening to Oak and Steel podcast. That's
hmm
with First Do Construction and his cousin, who unfortunately I forget. His name's Michael.
hmm
But he was in there and he had just listened to our show and he's like, yeah, they're always talking about this maker camp and all these people and it's like a circle. And he knows none of them, absolutely none of them.
it's wild,
Matt
right?
knows us all, right?
Yeah,
But that whole circle doesn't, like, he's just like, I'm in the maker community, but I don't know any of this stuff.
I
What
know
is it?
none of
And
these people. I don't know who you're talking about.
then I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's like, he's doing some crazy stuff. He's got his own circle. Are we missing like a whole wealth of people out there?
Well,
I don't
it's
know.
funny you say that because when I joined that chat, I knew everyone in that chat, and I'm like, well, this is weird. Like, so that means the overlap in communities is pretty strong, like for us. But then, somebody will mention somebody new. Like I always ask, and I always say it on this show, if you have someone that you would suggest as a guest, throw it out there because, if I haven't heard of them, if they haven't been on, I probably haven't heard of them. But if they're interesting, I'll happily have just about anybody on. And I
Right.
get names and it's like, I have no idea who this person is. They got 75,000 followers on Instagram. They've been posting for 8 years. They're doing incredible stuff. And it's like, I don't even know who you are. Like, it's like they
Yeah.
just exist on another island in another place. It's so bizarre.
Like, I'm in my own little circle
hmm
and, I'm on the Clubhouse app and I'm in a couple different chats, or I go to these events and somebody's like, oh, do you know so and so? And I'm like, no, I don't. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know them? You have to know, you know who they are. I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, yeah, you do. They're
Nope.
huge. I'm like, okay, but I don't know who they are.
I'm sure
They're like, yeah,
I'm sure they're
you have
massive.
to know. You'll have to follow them now. I'm like, no, I really don't. I really don't. I like my circle. I'm good. But yeah, if I follow too many people, then everything gets lost.
Well, then you're not, if you're following everyone, you're basically following no one at that point. You
Right.
can't, I, I've hit that problem with Instagram. Actually hit it a couple of years ago where I was basically one to one followers to following, which I don't mind following people back. If you're doing interesting stuff, I do want it in my feed. Like I want to see what you're doing. And what ends up happening is that just over time, you're not really paying attention to anyone anymore because there's just so much noise. And it's not even bad noise. It's just, if
Noise.
I want to see
Digital
my
noise.
friends first, and then fill it in after I see all my friends' stuff. Instagram's not smart enough to do that. It's like, oh no, here's
Well,
everybody. You once searched for Tonka trucks. Here's everyone that's ever touched a Tonka truck in the last 20 years doing Instagram posts.
yeah, that's the problem.
yeah.
That explore page will get you because you're
It's
clicking on
terrible.
things that ain't woodworking, you know,
I get
and then you're off woodworking or making in general, and then you're in the cars, or heaven
I,
forbid you hit 90s, like remember the 90s post or something, and then the next 8 years of Instagram or
if
90s posts.
if I'm just gonna say this. We're gonna do this cold on the show. I'm gonna open up the app. I'm gonna hit the explore page, and I'm fully convinced that Instagram thinks I'm a lonely single woman. Okay. Let me read off some of these. Here. You can see here's the screen. So you don't think I'm lying. Here.
Oh,
Seven
wow.
seven tiny habits to make you attractive. Five signs you've met your soulmate. Every relationship will get boring after. You're not crazy, you're being gaslighted. Things not to feel guilty about. The X effect. I mean, dude, it's uncanny. I don't know where they're getting this information from. You know what I mean? Like Maybe all right, maybe a year ago, fine, whatever. I'm dating, whatever. But it's been like that for it's been like that since. And I don't click any of the things in the explore feed because they're not relevant. And it's like I wish I could just purge it and start over.
Yeah, my explore page looks very different than yours.
I can only imagine what you have in yours. It's probably all is it relevant though? Like that's kind of what I was going for. Is it relevant stuff?
It's a lot of hot rods, a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
old Volkswagens,
Okay, so that is relevant to
uh,
your interests.
woodworking. But what's weird is it's a lot of fitness. I think that comes from Make What You Fear last year,
Mhm.
and tattoos. Lots of tattoos. I don't have any tattoos. I don't want a tattoo, but I get fed tattoos. I guess Instagram's like, hey man, you're a woodworker without a beard, you must have a
You
tattoo.
must have tattoos, right? Yeah, you gotta balance the universe. You can't have no beard and no tattoos. Like it's
Right.
important.
So I don't know. I'll figure it out one of
Do
these
you,
days.
are you? So what I did last week? Last week I did what I called the last episode, I should say, because it was really just yesterday.
The state of the show
The state of the show episode, and some people actually messaged me and they thought I was actually ending the show, and I'm like,
again.
yeah, no, I'm not doing that again. I learned my lesson. You guys like the show. I'm gonna stick around.
What's this going to be? Wood talk. Thanks for not quitting.
But I did the state of the show, and I wanted to ask a fellow podcaster this because I did something I've never done on the show, which is talk realistically about the numbers for the show.
Yeah, I
And
heard
what I've
that.
seen with this show over the last 6 months since I started it over has been a decline in the numbers off the top on release week, but a
Yep.
much longer tail overall where people grab the show later and listen to it, or particularly particularly about a month after the show comes out, because the
Oh,
show's
that
not
long.
top. It's literally that long. Like it'll hit the numbers that because we make used to pop off, and then 2 weeks after 2 weeks it would just die. Like the episode would drop dead. Like nobody was listening anymore. This is hitting the same numbers. It's just taking a slower curve to get there. So I was wondering if, as another podcaster of a similar show of similar size to a similar audience, are you seeing the same thing or?
So I hardly ever look at the numbers anymore. I gave
Mhm.
up Karen. But after I listened to your episode today because I just got back from
Mhm.
vacation, and I meant to look it up, and it's kind of the same.
Mhm.
Our first day is still doing pretty good. We still
Right.
get a couple hundred on day one.
Okay.
But then to get to where they're at, we're probably a month behind.
Yeah. So then you're seeing about the same thing I was.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
less than 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about 5 weeks behind.
yeah, to get to
So
where they
it's about
were,
the
and they're
average.
still getting
Yeah,
to the same rough number, just
they're
taking
just
longer
late.
to get there. That's so
Yep.
weird. I
I
don't
wonder if
understand.
people are catching up. Like people are getting active. Winter's
Yeah.
kind of ending in a lot of parts of the country.
The weather is getting better again, so people are
Yeah.
going outside, they're chatting, whatever. I mean, it kind of was like, because I remember my end of day one measuring stick was, did we hit 200 to 250 downloads on day one? And we used to hit it regularly on Because We Make. That wasn't even an issue. Like that was typical for us. Then we would end somewhere. An episode would end somewhere between 3.25 and 400 downloads for an episode. For a normal, just
Yeah.
average guest. Nobody, no big heavy hitter guest, just a good guest that we enjoyed talking to. And now I'm hitting those numbers, but I'm hitting those numbers like that number comes up weeks after release now. And then it stops. It still stops. I'm still hitting this. Like, it's weird. You still hit the same numbers, but I was getting like nervous because, like, oh, am I failing? Is this like not doing
No,
well for people? Are they not listening
there's
anymore?
a
And the answer is no, they're not. They are still listening. They're just, and the people that do listen are actually more engaged. I was just wondering if it was the same for you guys, and apparently it is. So that's kind of
there's a
interesting.
lot of podcasts out there. You know,
There's a
like
lot of podcasts. There's not a lot of active
like
podcasts
for a
out there.
while there, we had Wednesdays on lock, and then this podcast came back, and he decided to release on Wednesdays again. and that tanked our numbers pretty bad.
I was so pissed off when you switched to Wednesdays because you
I had
weren't
to.
doing Wednesdays, and I was like,
W
"That's why I picked Wednesday." There was literally nobody else on Wednesday, and then one day you're like, "Yeah, we're gonna start releasing on Wednesday now," and I'm
we
like,
were
you son of a
yeah,
bitch."
so we were doing Saturdays
Mhm,
for a while, and then a lot of the people were saying they listen on their way to and from work, so I was like, "Alright, let's." I talked to the guys, and they're like, "Yeah, let's move it to m midweek," so that's what we
mhm.
did.
Yeah, it's pretty doesn't get more midweek than Wednesday. I like
No.
Wednesdays. It's like it's kinda like the middle of the week. It gives you I also found so I was doing for this show, and I'm just probably not gonna do them anymore. It was one of the things I meant to talk about on the state of the show. I did the experiment for a couple of months of releasing reels and short content related to the show just to see, if it and it didn't do anything. And it's such a pain in the ass to do. It's like it's not worth doing. It didn't grow my YouTube account. It didn't grow my Instagram account and it didn't grow my TikTok account. Okay, fine. Whatever. I didn't necessarily expect it. People already know who I am, so they're not going to find me that way. But it also didn't increase any measurable way. It didn't increase anything for the podcast. And it's like, okay, I'm focusing on something that's not moving the needle. I need to focus on other things. So I just kind of I might, if something particularly amazing happens in an episode, maybe I just throw it out there as content. But the regimented, Tuesday a preview, Thursday a reminder that the show was released yesterday. I'm probably just going to stop doing that because it's just another thing that I just need to cross it off the list. Like it's not having the impact. I don't know. You guys don't really do that kind of stuff with your show
I put out a reel every week.
for the show
Yeah, every week.
on the Working Hands
Working Hands
podcast.
podcast.
Am I following the Working Hands podcast? Did
I
I
don't
just
think
out
so.
myself? Hold, please. Let me make sure. Let me see. Working Hands podcast. I am not following. Oops. That's why I didn't see it. Okay, following
Look at
now.
that, I just got a notification.
Oops. How the hell did that happen?
I'm pretty sure Working Hands podcast is following you.
Are they?
I'm gonna find out right now.
I know. I don't think Tony is. I'm kind of hurt by that, but I've just come to the conclusion that it's Instagram, and Tony doesn't play in the Instagram playground, so it doesn't matter.
No, no, Tony does not.
It's funny. It was funny talking about when you guys were talking about May for Makers because it was the second year of May. No, it was the first year of May for Makers. I did it as a YouTube video every day.
Right.
And
I remember.
I did it for the entire month, and I'm really glad I did that because I did it as an excuse to get my editing processes and really learn Premiere in the way it is now, not the way it was when I learned Premiere in version 3 a million years ago. And I'm
Right.
really glad I did that because I picked up a lot of editing tips and keyboard shortcuts that made me much faster in editing. And I was listening to you guys talking about how brutal the slog is to even like a reel up every day for 31 days. And I'm like, yeah, I could totally see that. Like that resonates for me because I was struggling to get a YouTube video up every single day for May for Makers. That's a lot of effort. But
Yeah, I got a lot of catching up to do. I was out on the ocean, so
are you gonna catch up? Or are you gonna just like? Because I know a lot of people. It's funny. You can always see. There's like, yeah. There's that's what I thought. There's a there's a distinct curve, and this is not a knocking May. I think May for Makers is awesome, right? But there's a distinct curve. It's usually the first 3 or 4 prompts. Everyone's doing them, and by the end of the first week, all of a sudden I'm not seeing them in my feed anymore. And then like
right.
somebody will pop in the next week and they'll catch up on like 5 prompts all in one post. And I know it's not supposed to be this regimented thing that everyone's doing, but it's really funny. You see the same trends with all of us doing the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough.
It's
It's tough
hard.
to keep going. It's got to be tough to come up with the posts, like the prompts. I mean,
Oh,
um,
100%.
to try and keep people engaged for 31 days. Um,
Plus when you
I
see
know what
what
I would change if I did something for a month-long challenge like that.
was
Uh,
that?
I'm not gonna tell you now.
Oh,
Come on now.
are you is there going to be a
No, I
war?
would do a prompt a week.
I think that's more realistic, honestly. Like, I think a prompt a week for a year would be something people could actually do.
No,
Have
I
you
would say
seen,
a prompt. a prompt a week for May.
From May, yeah, or something like that, right? So Christian Neary, Warren Works, is one of my favorite humans. Like, he's just a good dude. Like, as far as if I made a list of good dudes, he would be very close to the top, if not at the top. Like, he's just a solid, just all around good dude. He's doing this really cool thing that I love. He's doing this basically a 1-day build challenge, and he took a deck of cards and he wrote a 1-day build on every card, and
Oh yeah, I did see
every
this. Yeah,
week he draws a card, and that's what he's going to build next week. And he has stuck with this thing pretty religiously. And it's like, man, I don't know
which
how you're doing it. Like, that's impressive.
I mean, but they're his cards. So there were 52 projects he wanted to do
Yeah, but it's still,
eventually.
but think about it, right? He's doing 52 projects, which most of us don't do 52 projects in a year, right? He's doing 52 projects. He's doing them in 1 day, and he's making a YouTube video for each one. Plus, he's still running his woodworking business on top of it. Like,
Right.
I wish I was that full of piss and vinegar. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I don't have that in me, man. That's impressive.
If I had the time, I would do something like that. I just don't have the time.
Mhm.
My time is eaten up by work and
So let's
other
talk about
things.
that for a minute, because that's we know it's one thing that makers always talk about is time, and I know that you obviously you have a wife, you have a job, you have a life. Um, so but you don't your making isn't for a business. Your making is for personal. You're a personal maker.
Yeah,
I
pretty
don't want to
much.
call you a hobbyist, because you're more than a hobbyist, but you kind of are a hobbyist because it's not a professional thing where you're selling what you
Yeah,
make.
I would call myself a hobbyist. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. I
I
don't
don't
like
take
you.
any
Some people get
offense to that.
offended by that term because it implies like a tinkerer, like that kind. You're not that guy, but you know, do you find it hard to get motivated to get into the shop sometimes because there's nothing forcing you in? Like, if you don't have a client order that's waiting, or you don't have one of those, like, when you need to find balance in your life, is making something that gets accounted for, or is it get something that kicked aside until there's time for it?
Um, I make time every week to go in there.
Okay.
Um, Probably more than I should in some weeks. But I don't I go out there to like I'm stressed all the time at my job, right?
Hmm.
And the job doesn't leave. Like it's not like I go to a retail store and when I leave, it's over, right? I work from
Right.
home. I I run my own projects at this company, so everything is on me. So it's stressful.
Hmm.
If I don't get the job done, I'm working until 2 a.m. Right?
Right. You have to work till
So
your job is done, basically.
right, right. I'm
Right.
accountable for my own thing.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter if there's work for 24 hours a day. I'm working 24 hours a day until the job's done. But then there may be times where I work 8 hours a day, like a civilized human being, and I feel like I have half a day, and I go out in the shop, and that is, I mean, it's legit. When I'm done in 8 hours, I feel like, well, what am
Mhm.
I going to do? Like I didn't even do anything today, right?
Wow.
So, um, I'll go out in the shop on those days, but it's an escape for me. So I
Mhm.
don't want that stress of, oh, I have a client that like if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, can you make me a dining table?" Sure, I'll do it. Here's the price and it's on my timetable. And I'll
Mhm.
do it within a realistic amount of time.
Sure.
But if you say you need it next week, that's a no. Go
Right.
somewhere
That's
else.
a hard
Right?
no.
I can't commit to that because
Right.
I'm not going to make enough money on dining tables to not work my job.
Of
Right?
course.
So I just want to go in there on my time and do my thing, right? I don't enjoy cutting boards, so I don't make them,
Mhm.
right? If people ask me to make them with cutting board, if I have one that I've made laying around, I'll sell you that one. But I'm
Sure.
not going to make you one with your species of wood. That doesn't interest me, right? I'll use scrap wood and make some every now and then, but it bores me. So it's like my time,
Mhm.
right? That's my escape. So once the chores around the house are done, work is over, I can go out there and just tinker. I'd rather do that. I can't sit still,
Mhm.
you know? I just got back from this cruise and I was bouncing off walls on the cruise on some days. Like I need to be doing something.
Oh, wow.
So
I've been told I am the most active unemployed person that Kathy has ever seen. She's constantly laughing. She's like, because I always joke, it's like, yeah, I don't sit still. She goes, "No, I know. I can tell." Like I'm sitting there, like I was sitting there the other day. I was just sitting there. We were watching TV, and out came my phone, and I'm like going crazy, and I'm like drawing up a plan, like just kind of outlining something I wanted to do. And
Right.
it's like it just the mind just doesn't stop. So yeah, when you say you have a hard time relaxing, like we were in the hot tub at the hotel last night, and even then, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, "Okay, when I get up to the room, I have to do this. I have to just go jump on my phone, shoot this one email out, and, I
Yeah.
have to check and see if I got another email from this person, and then
Yeah.
probably lay out and I'm like, "Oh my god, dude, just stop. Like, for 5 minutes, just stop." And I can't do it. It's interesting to hear someone else say it that that's the way they are too. Like, you're that guy also. It
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
stop.
there's a few TV shows I'll sit down and watch,
Mhm.
but for the most part, that needs to be after I felt I've been productive enough today.
Yeah. Same here.
And
Same
there's
here.
times where, like, I'll eat dinner with the wife, and then to spend time with her, I'll sit down and watch a TV show or something. And then after one, I'm like, all right, I'm going out in the shop. She's like, oh, I thought you were done for the day. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, no, I'm going to go out there for a couple hours.
Mhm.
And then I'll go out in the shop. And sometimes I don't even do anything. I tinker out there. And I wind up going back the next day and I made a mess.
I'll tell you what, that is the one thing I severely miss about having my shop in my house, was being able to, like, at 10 o'clock at night go, "I'm just gonna go downstairs," even if I just clean. Like,
Yep.
I always find cleaning my shop super therapeutic, but
Yeah.
now it's like cleaning is kind of part of the process now because my shop is a half hour away from me. So it's like it's very different. My time in the shop is much more structured now. I'm way more productive in shorter amounts of time. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm amazed at how much more I get done in, maybe 3 or 4 hours in the shop now as opposed to a whole day in the shop before.
Yeah.
Mainly because I don't have the distractions of the house and the cats and sitting on the couch and watching TV. Like, it's no, I'm in the shop. It's time to work, work, you
Right.
know.
Like I'll
But
come inside, grab a soda, grab a beer,
mhm.
sit down on the couch, play on my phone, and then go
Mhm.
back out to the project I was working on. Where if I wasn't at my house, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that was a big adjustment for me, and I wasn't expecting it to be as big of an adjustment as it is. So now it's kind of become a thing where if I'm going to shop, it's like, okay, it's time to work. And the most non-work thing I do is like I have a podcast on, like listening to podcasts,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like it's things have to get done. If you're here, if you made that drive up here, make that drive count. So
Yeah. Right.
um,
Do you find yourself more structured? Like before you leave, you know what the plan is for the day when you're
I
going to the
generally
shop?
go into yeah, if I'm going to the shop, it's to accomplish X, Y, and Z. That's why I had that meltdown on I don't know if you saw it because you were in international waters, but I had a massive meltdown in the shop on Thursday.
Oh no.
I because the CNC did a thing I didn't want it to do, and it damaged a 30 by 24 cutting board that I'm making for a customer. It just
Not good.
plunged straight into the middle of it.
That
Now,
sounds like my CNC machine.
yeah, honestly,
It's got
dude,
a mind of its own.
it well, so here's what I ended up figuring out because I took it to Al. I'm like, I need help. I can't screw this up again because I can't afford the wood to
Right.
replace this. So I need help. So I brought it up to Al and we threw it on Hannibal and we cleaned up one side, made it flat, flipped it over to the side where the gouge was. Turns out the gouge was the right depth. It just did it in one pass. So because
Oh,
by the time we got everything completely flat on the back, the gouge was gone. And it made me feel better because I was like, okay, I had a complete meltdown. Like I hate CNCs. Every time I touch this machine, it makes me sad. Like I never know if I'm going to get this right or if I can never feel like I'm never confident enough with it. Even though I know what I'm doing, I'm never confident enough to go, I can do this in one shot and I don't need a whole day open just in case I screw it up. Like I can just
yeah.
trust that the machine will do the right thing or I'll do the right thing with the machine. I'm not even going to blame the machine. I'll trust that I will do the right thing with the machine. I don't have that level of trust with it. Um,
I
but
I
yeah,
have
I
that
had a
level of
meltdown.
trust when I make a file
Mhm.
and my G code and I
Sure.
run the simulations, all that stuff. But the CNC I have doesn't follow G code. Doesn't matter what program I created in. it gets a mind of its own, and it says, "You know what? Today's not your day."
Yeah, and tomorrow's not
And
looking
that,
good either.
at least if I'm doing something with a handheld router or chisel or something like that, and it screws up, I know the only person that screwed that up is this guy with these two
Yep,
hands.
yep.
When it's a machine, I'm at the will of the machine, and if computer glitches and it moves off the wrong axis, uh,
I always feel like as much as I love digital fabrication in all its glory and all the cool things that we can accomplish that way, I always feel like there's always a certain amount of this is out of your control. Once you press go, you have no say in the matter anymore. It's like it's
and for 90% of things, it doesn't matter. You're making like a small piece here, a small piece there,
mhm,
cutting out parts, whatever.
right,
That stuff doesn't matter because it's inconsequential. But when
right.
you spend, 3 hours and $200 worth of wood on a cutting
Exactly.
board,
Exactly.
you're like, I can't screw this up.
And I think the pressure of going into it with the mindset of I can't screw this up and then screwing it up, it just I honestly find that to be the hardest part of doing this as a business is the mindset of I can't screw this up.
Yeah.
And then knowing that, you will screw things up from time to time. I mean, I've been very fortunate. And this isn't bragging, but it's just me saying I've been very fortunate to not have had a lot of catastrophic screw ups in the shop where I had to start something from scratch. I've only had to do that one time. I had to start a
You're
project
lucky.
over, and it was a big, expensive, multi-operation project. The second version was so much better than the first that I didn't even care. But I always go into every project with that I can't screw this up, and for the most part, I don't. But most of my projects are machines that I am like can do blindfolded. I can work my table saw blindfolded. I know all its idiosyncrasies. I know all the inconsistencies. I know
I don't recommend using a table saw blindfolded.
I mean it's probably not good strategy, no. As far as safety, I wouldn't recommend. 0 out of
Yeah,
10 would not recommend.
I had a run of projects with a carve on my machine. It was if I ran the simulation, it was supposed to be a 10.5 hour carve.
Mhm.
When I put it on the machine, it goes up to like maybe a 16, 17 hour carve.
Oh, Jesus.
So I was running them, and somewhere around the 12-hour mark, 10-hour mark, sometimes the 14-hour mark is when the machine would just be like, "Today's not your day." So it's almost done, and then it would screw everything up. And then naturally, it's not like I knew what line of code I was at, so I could go back to that and start there,
Of course not.
because when it would screw up, then the machine would screw up, like the running software would
Mhm.
also miraculously screw up,
Oh, yeah,
and
of
I'd
course.
lose everything. And then I'm out, $300 worth of material every time. So
I think that's the biggest killer. It's almost not even the piece. It's what it's gonna cost you to go back to 0 and start over. Like, this board is way beyond the scope of the size that I could realistically make on a regular basis in my shop. My table saw is just a DeWalt, was a 7490. Like a not it's not a big saw by any stretch. It's a contractor saw with a big outfeed table on it. That's pretty much how I have
right.
it set up. I have a small bandsaw. I have a 13-inch planer. We're not talking about industrial size equipment. So I shouldn't be making 30 by 24 cutting boards. Like that's just asinine. Like why would you even think you could do this? But realistically,
But you want to,
I
because you get
do.
bored of the small stuff.
It's not even that I'm bored
You
of the
got to
small
push the
stuff.
limits. You
I
got to push
That's
the
what it
limits.
is. That's what it is. Like, if I could offer this as something I can do for people, like, it's nice to check your limitations. The last time I did a board this size, I did it for this customer also. And the last time I did a board this size, I pretty much had no issues doing it, but it was a very simple board. The glue up was all the same wood. I cut it all at the same time. This was 3 different species of wood cut from 3 different sources. So I had to squeeze as much material out of them as I could. So it was all uneven. Like it was a whole process. Like I still have, and you know what the worst part is? I still have to get the damn thing back on my CNC now because I can't do the juice groove with my current juice groove jig. It's not big enough. and I can't engrave it on my Glowforge because again, it's too big. So it's going to
Ooh.
have to go back on. It's going to have to, after all this, it's going to have to go back on the CNC, and I'm going to have to trust that I can find dead center and put a juice groove in this board.
When are you getting one of those big boy lasers?
I don't even have. So it's very funny you say that. Well, I'm going to give you two interesting tidbits. Number one, I was looking at one. Okay, I was going to get a very big one, kind of along the lines of what Al has. Number one, it wouldn't fit in my shop because even sideways, it wouldn't fit in the door, which is really,
right.
really funny. I only have like a regular door access to my shop. So that sucks, number one. Had I bought the one I wanted ages ago, I'd be homeless right now. Because the fact that I didn't buy it left the money in my savings account, and I've been living off my savings since December 1st.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad I didn't, even though I really would have liked to have had a really nice laser. I am very, very, very glad I did not do that. But
yeah.
That's why, you know, I get very emotional when somebody supports the podcast or throws a couple of dollars in the kitty, because it's been a minute as far as me having an actual job. Getting to the point where if I don't get a job soon, I'm going to be unemployable because I just won't know how to work anymore. I mean, I know how to work, but I don't know how to be an employee anymore.
What about all that wedding stuff you were doing? What was it, last spring?
I mean, it's going to start up again because
Yeah.
last year I connected with a lot of wedding planners when I was when it really blew up, and then obviously it cools off a little bit.
Well,
It's going to
wedding
start.
season only a few months a year.
Yeah, it's going to pick up again. I know it's going to pick up. It's already starting where I'm starting to get quote requests. So people are starting to line up what they're going to be doing this year. And I have a couple who pretty much have committed that if they get clients that need this kind of stuff, they're only going to come to me. So I know that's going to come. I had a very good job interview this week. Very good.
Nice.
Which would pay me more than I was getting paid at my last job, to do basically what I was doing at my last job. So we'll see. I got high hopes, and I'm consulting for a couple. I have multiple consulting things running, doing freelance. So I'm just hoping something sticks. But that's why I don't have one of those big boy lasers, because
everything happens for a reason.
It's crazy, right? Like, oh man, I really want that big. There were two things I wanted to get. I wanted to get a big ass 100-watt CO2 laser, and I wanted to get a direct to garment printer so I could print on fabric, like print my own shirts direct to the shirt. Like that was something I really, really, really wanted to do, because
I've looked into that in the past.
It's not that expensive to get into it. And it's one of those,
when I was looking.
It's $6,000 basically for the printer, and
That was way more than that when I was looking.
Oh yeah, no, I was looking at smaller machines, but I figured I could offer that service to other makers too. Like my goal was to get the machine and then kind of go, hey, you know, you guys need working hand podcast shirts, you know, let me know and I'll make them for you, rather than you having to go to a merch company to have them made.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't get to do it. And I'm glad, because that would have been like $21,000 out of my savings account, and I needed it for rent. Who knew?
Who knew, right?
I was happily employed at the time, and I was like, I'm just throwing money around. I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. And it's like, yeah, you don't have a job anymore. It's like, whoa, stop the spending. Stop the spending. But that's life.
Yeah, but I mean, if you wind up with a job that pays more, then that's why.
Well, now I'm going to have to fix all the credit cards I've been living off of also.
Wow. Stop living off credit cards.
Oh, dude. Trust me when I tell you, I am a resourceful, if not smart man. So
yeah.
But
it'll all work out.
I think I honestly, you know, and I was telling Kathy today, I was like, there have been two people who have been in my corner, you know, since the beginning, telling me it would all work out. And they've been right so far, that it does seem to be finding a way to work itself out. And, you know, it was her and my friend Katie, you know, the two of them. It's just like they have more faith in me than I have in myself. And I readily admit that I don't know how I would feel if I wasn't dating someone that's as supportive as she is, because honestly, I've needed it. Like, and no matter what I say, if I'm feeling like shit, or if I'm feeling like my work's not up to par, she's just right behind me, just cleaning up my my black clouds, and it's like I need that right now. I'm not the guy to like that toxic positivity shit. That's not me. But man, I need that in my life right now. Like I kind of need that to go. It's gonna be okay. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. You know. And I just need to
Yeah.
keep hearing it because sometimes it really doesn't feel like it's going to be okay, and it's scary. I've never had. This isn't a therapy session, but just I've never had. I've always had a safety net. I lived with my parents, and then I lived with my ex-wife, and my ex-wife made a shit ton more money than I did. So I
Right.
could theoretically lose my job entirely, live off her
And still
salary,
be
and
all right.
it wouldn't even make an impact on our life. Like it would just be like I just wouldn't be working. That would be the only difference. So, now it's like, no, dude, you're on your own. Like, you got to pay your own rent. You got to pay for your own car. You got to pay for your own car insurance.
Well, welcome to adulthood.
I know, but, a lot of people get into adulthood and they get married right away, and that's how they enter adulthood. And it's a little different. I'm not used to being adulthood by myself. I've never lived alone in my
Right.
life. I never got prepared for this, okay? I never even went to school, man. But
Yeah, but it's opening up opportunities that you don't even see yet.
yeah, and
You know,
I'm doing this. I'm doing this scared, but with a smile on my face because I refuse to not be me. I refuse to not be me. I refuse to let it just get me down. Like it's no.
I've lost jobs in the past, and it sucks for a few months, and then it always works out in the end.
It's weird the way you find out how resilient you are. And I'm not going to go into my whole life story here, but I've had a couple of moments in my life where it's like, no, you have to bounce back. Like you don't have a choice. You just gotta. And you
Right.
just do because that's it. That's your choice. It's like bounce back or die. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not ready to die, so I guess I'm going to bounce back.
Not having a job is the least of your worries.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
I always, and I said it, I've said it a few times, like everything in my life is wonderful except for my job situation. So if that's the biggest problem I have, then so be
Yeah. But for those of us that have jobs, we hate having a job. So either way, the job situation is going to suck.
it.
So it depends on how you look at it. The grass is always greener on the other side.
It was funny because I did a consulting gig and I was working for without giving away too much, I was working for a company that does hospitality systems in hotels. And I had 2, consulting stops to make last week. And I made the first, and I got in the car and I'm driving into Manhattan. And, you're from the area, so driving into Manhattan is just a shit show no matter when you do it, no
I do
matter
it
what.
every week.
Parking is a shit show no matter what you do, when you do it. And I'm driving into the city going, this is what you want, right? You wanted a job. Well, here you go. This is your job. Are you happy now? No, you're not happy. You're freaking miserable doing this, aren't you? And I'm like, just like gnashing my teeth, going, oh, I really like, I can't do this every day, but it's like that's what you want. So
I am currently doing everything in my power to get out of any job that ever goes back into the city again.
I don't think people outside of New York City realize how much the people around here hate driving or going into the city. Like
It's the worst.
young people that live in the city think they have the best life, and fine, if you like that life, go ahead and live it. But man, I like my grass and my lawns, and I don't want to drive into the city.
No,
I like it here.
I can't stand the city.
So just a
The
bunch of.
traffic is terrible. And then you always hear people talk about, oh, LA traffic's worse. I don't know that it is.
I lived in LA for a month, and I'm just gonna say it is, but it's more contained. So I lived in LA for in August, like basically the whole month of August in 2000. I want to say it was 2000. Yeah, it was 2002. I lived in LA for a month. And what I learned was if I wanted to go to work from where I was staying, it was
Right.
about walking wise, it was a 40-minute walk. If I drove it before 9 o'clock, it was a 45-minute drive. If I drove it after 9 o'clock, it was a 10-minute drive. Like
Yeah.
the
See, that's
traffic is
crazy
very
to me.
specific. You cannot move in LA in certain hours. I know somebody in LA listening going, that's not true. Yes, it is. I lived it. And every time I went back, it was the same. So it's not like that's changed. But yeah, we're
So
gonna
I just looked it up. LA
mhm.
comes in at number 6.
And for
New York comes
traffic?
in at number 4.
Really? What's number one?
Boston.
That makes sense. Actually, that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of roads that shouldn't be roads in Boston.
Yeah.
That makes perfect
It
sense.
goes Boston,
All the cow
Chicago,
paths.
Philly, New York, DC, LA.
Chicago, I forgot Chicago. Yeah, Chicago's some next level traffic.
Now it goes by hours lost, and I know you're trying to wrap this up, but
No,
it
that's
goes
fine.
by
Go for it.
hours lost to the congestion, right?
Uh huh.
Boston is at 149 in the number one spot. New York is at 140, so 140 hours lost.
So it's really trivial. It's the same.
LA 103. It's not even close.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that. But maybe it's because the people
Well,
there know how to avoid it. So,
I think LA is so spread out that
mhm.
you're in traffic, but it's over longer periods. Like it's over longer
Mm,
miles.
good point.
So it feels worse.
Well, also people don't
It's
commute.
taken me on multiple days a week. I'll go into the city and I will move 1 mile per hour.
It does feel that way. It does feel that way.
No, I've clocked it because I sit there on the clock for work.
You know what's funny? So like when Kathy comes, so Kathy lives literally by JFK, right?
Okay.
So when she comes here, if she comes here in the middle of the day, it takes 2 hours to get here. I'm in Westwood, New Jersey. She lives by JFK. That's a
Right.
27-mile drive. It takes her 2 hours easily. And it's taken
Easy.
me I've gone to her on like a Friday afternoon. It's taken me 2.5 hours to get there.
Yeah.
If I wait till 9 o'clock, which after we're done recording, I'm going to download the files and we're heading over to her place for the weekend. If I do that, it's going to take me 40 minutes to get to her place from here. 40 minutes. No,
Maybe.
no, yeah, it was wild because I had to take her home a couple of weeks ago, and it was like we got home so fast. We got to her place so fast. I got there and back in an hour and a half. It was like, God, like it's 3 hours of sitting on the Cross Island Parkway to get to her sometimes. But meanwhile, it's I don't think people that live in New York appreciate
That don't live in New York.
that don't live in New York. Yeah, I don't think the people that don't live in New York appreciate how ridiculously different it is. When we were on the dating sites and we both had the same experience and we were joking about this the other day. You know, you go to like these dating sites and they say, what radius are you looking for? And you say 20 miles, right? 25 miles. 25 miles is a reasonable amount to travel to meet somebody,
Yeah.
right? Technically, Kathy is 25 miles away from me as the crow flies. There is no road that gets me to her in 25 miles. So it's like,
True New Yorkers don't get it because I travel all over,
mm-hmm,
like all over the five boroughs for work.
mm-hmm,
And I'll have an appointment at a building, say at 10 a.m.
mm-hmm.
I'd leave my house at 6.
You and me both. It's
I'm
just
37
normal.
miles away from Manhattan. I leave my house at 6 in the morning for a 10 o'clock visit.
I do the same
And
thing.
then you get there, and the first thing I always ask is, "You guys got a restroom?" And they're like, "No, not a public one. Why?" I'm like, "Because I've been in the car for 4 hours." They're like, "Where are you coming from?" I'm like, "Jersey." They're like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Oh my god, it's amazing. I swear, I feel like we have a unique experience, and it's not because 'cause we're in New Jersey, by the way. I know that people are like, "Oh, well, you're in Jersey. What do you expect?" No, 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 no. I could
Connecticut.
literally the George Washington Bridge, when there's no traffic, is 10 minutes from me, you know? Even
Yeah,
Newark Airport, another one, Newark Airport, it's 12 miles from me. If you go there during rush hour, it's an hour and a half to get there during rush hour. It's
yeah.
20 minutes away right now. If I left
And
right
that's
now, it'd
just
be
to get there. Then when you get into the airport, you got to fight all that
oh,
traffic.
that's a whole other that's a whole other story. See, we have a shared experience, Keith. That's what makes this
Yep.
show special. We share experiences on here. You know what experience I want to share with you though? I want to share the experience of a thing of the week. And,
Okay,
and I'm really, really hoping you got one. Or
I do,
you
but
do. All
I'm gonna need
right.
your help with it because I forget what it is.
Okay.
But
Okay.
on your recommendation,
Uh-huh.
I just bought a new iPad.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I bought the one with the pen. This
Nice.
is based on one of your recommendations of the week,
Uh-huh.
and I got it for the drawing program. What's it
Uh-huh.
called?
Procreate.
Procreate. So I
Uh-huh.
got Procreate and I got that, and I started screwing around with it right before I left for vacation.
Oh,
And
excellent.
as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go mess with it. But I
Isn't it
got
the
it.
greatest thing?
I don't know yet. I got a long way to go. Like I have maybe 10, 15 minutes into it so far.
I love that app. I still it's funny because I only have the only Apple products I have are the iPhone and the iPad. And the main reason I keep the iPad and not just have my laptop is for Procreate, because there's nothing like Procreate on Windows, Mac, or Android. It just doesn't exist. It is.
I wonder why they don't have it for.
I think well, the developers made such a perfect program, and they only make it for one platform. There is an imitation one that I just saw. Brad Colbo was showing it on his YouTube channel. There is another one that's kind of like it. It's pretty close. I mean, it's functionally similar, but also Apple's Pencil is amazing. Like, it's very, very good. It's responsive, it's fast, the battery lasts on it forever. You just stick it to the side when you're done. Like, it's great. That's a good one. You're gonna if I don't know, do you have like drawing ability? Because I sure as hell don't. I'm barely competent when it comes to drawing. So
I, I'm okay.
okay,
I'm not great. I'm no artist.
you'd be surprised how much you can get done with just playing with the different media. Like, it's kind of that's the one thing that makes Procreate better than just about anything else. Like, you can work with gouache, you can work with watercolors, you can work with alcohol markers, and they act like the real media. I absolutely love it. That's a great one. So
Yeah. So Procreate is my thing of
Procreate.
the week, and
That's a that's an
I
excellent
only
thing of the
just
week.
downloaded it and I have 10 minutes of use on it. But so far, that's my thing of the week.
It's a good one. That's a good. I think it's one of those things that everyone should try to do. At least if you have an iPad, it's worth $10. It's the best $10 app I've ever bought. I like it. My
There's no
thing of
add-ons later, right?
well, so most of the brush packs, there's a lot of brush packs out there for it, which make it really great. Like, Jazza has a brush pack that's like a whole bunch of different categories, like different media that you can use and
Uh,
different textures that you can apply to the page. And it makes time lapse of everything you draw while you're doing it, which is also really cool. So
that is cool.
yeah, so like whenever I do anything in Procreate that's really cool, I save the time lapse and I post it on Instagram as content, because everything's
Yeah.
content. So might as well.
What's your thing of the week?
My thing of the week is such a pedestrian, basic bitch thing, but I'm not gonna lie. I had my first experience with Wawa this week while I was in Philly.
Wawa.
Wawa is my thing of the week. And it should surprise precisely no one who I've talked about my trip to Philly with, because I had I had so much fun at Wawa. It's the most perfect thing ever. Just in general. Their system of ordering is amazing. Their their food is actually very good. I had the same breakfast burrito every day for 3 days because I just fell in love with it, and the coffee was really good. So
I do
I,
like the Wawa coffee.
Wawa's coffee is very good. Very, very good. Honestly, I was surprised at how good it was. I was expecting it to be good because I've heard it's good. I didn't expect to love it, but it's just they have a system for ordering that I feel like is the model. Their kiosk ordering is what every kiosk ordering system should be like. It's absolutely fantastic. It's
Did they
fast.
have a self-checkout
Yeah,
here at Wawa?
unfortunately, this location, none of the self checkouts were ever working, but they're also really efficient. Like, I would put my order in, take the tag over to the cash register to pay,
Pay and go
and by
back
the
and your
time
food
I'm
was ready.
paying, my coffee was ready. I'd grab my coffee, and like 2 minutes later, my food was ready. I don't know how they move that fast. And you can see them making it. This isn't pre-made stuff that they're pulling out. It's
So for
wild.
anyone not in our area, Wawa is like the local gas station
Mhm.
that's taking over the world. They're on every street corner now,
Pretty much. In
pretty
central
much.
southern and central New Jersey and the Philadelphia area, Wawa is like a religion. It
They
really
just
is.
opened their 1,000th store, and it was in New Jersey recently.
Yeah. It and then a couple of days after that, they opened the one there's now one by me in Ramsey, which I'm very excited about, because now I know I can get that same wonderful breakfast I had for 3 consecutive days in Philly. But
Oh man,
Kathy
it's
lived
gonna
in
be.
Philly. Kathy lived in Philly for a couple of years. And one of the first morning we were there, she's like, "Okay, so we should probably go to Wawa to get breakfast. You should experience Wawa for like breakfast." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it." And I took the first bite and I'm like, "Oh my god, I
You,
understand." Like, I got it instantly. I was like, "This is
you
great."
gotta
Like,
get a sizzly though.
that's what I've been told. My
Yeah,
friend Chris actually asked me. He told me, "Congratulations on your first sizzly," and I was like, "Well, I don't know what that is yet." And he goes, "Oh, okay." So I had to have it explained to me, but now I understand what it is. So
they're good.
now it's
That's what I
another
get
thing
for
to
breakfast if
experience.
I go to Wawa.
I don't know how to it's like, the 7-Elevens that have a gas station? Imagine one of those, only cleaner, brighter, and with better food. That's pretty much like what it
So
is.
Wawa started as a convenience store with a deli.
Mhm.
They only recently got into the gas station game,
Yep.
and I think that's the difference. They used
It's
to just be delis.
it's so convenient. Like, they have every and one of the cool things about being in Philly was, boy, the amount of chewing tobacco they had behind the counter. I've never seen so many different varieties of chewing tobacco in my life. Like, as someone who has family in West Virginia, I was still impressed. Like, that's how much chewing tobacco they have. But
It's a setup for sure.
yeah. So Wawa, thing of the week. A very strange thing of the week. I readily admit it, but if you're passing through the area and you happen to see one, you might want to just stop by. It's like, you know what I was thinking. It's probably like, to an extent, it's probably like the milk run. Everyone talks about the milk run, but the milk run is like, it's just a small little like conveniency
Yeah,
dinery place. Like, it's not like a crazy restaurant that it's like, I think like that's like a Wawa for the Irish Alps, as they say. That's what they
yeah,
call it, right? The Irish Alps up there.
yeah. The Irish Alps. Yeah,
So yeah, Wawa. Um, it's cheap also, which is also nice.
I
But
went to Wawa today for their iced tea. I love the Wawa iced tea.
interesting.
Yeah, I get the peach
Interesting.
iced tea. It's
You know
good.
what's good? You know what was also good the first time I went there? I just tried their coffee and I just grabbed a donut. Their baked goods are very good. Like the stuff in the wrappers. Like, it's
Yep.
like even their branded stuff, it's all good. Like, damn, everything's good here. So I feel like a Wawa spokesperson, because everybody's like, because Kathy was telling everybody, like, yeah, he really likes. She was going like, yeah, he really likes Wawa. I'm like, yeah, I really like Wawa. Like, never had
Well, if
Wawa
you've never
before?
had it before, I could see the experience. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He's a
it's a
New
good thing of
York
the week.
boy. What does he know? um,
They're coming to New York soon, I believe.
that'd be wild, because they're going to put a lot of these crappy little convenience places out of business. That's for damn sure. New York could use them. Um,
That's what they're doing here. It's terrible. I don't like. I mean, they're taking over the world.
I'd rather they take over the world, because you know what? Clean up everything. I'm tired of these like savage places that you wouldn't eat the food from. It's like, these places are clean, they're bright, the food is good. I know it's not nice when a corporation takes over, but you know what? At least it's a good corporation that's making cheap shit that everybody can eat.
In my town, I got a family-run deli and
Hmm.
butcher shop, and it's on
Okay.
a corner, predominant corner, right as I come off the highway, heading into my town. Wawa bought them out. They're gone.
Money
They got like
talks,
3
man.
months left. They broke ground this week. I'm like, "Oh, man. Sucks."
I'm trying to remember. The one they opened in Ramsey, I'm trying to remember what was there before them, and I don't even remember. So I guess it wasn't all that important. And I think that kind of speaks volumes, right? Like, now what's there? Wawa's there now. Like, what was there? I have no idea. Like, whatever was there didn't even register that it was there. I don't we It's not missed, it's not known. Who the hell knows what was there? It's Wawa. It's so
I
funny
know.
because there's people directing traffic, because the novelty of it just opened. So now everybody and their brother's trying to get into it. It's so hysterical.
Yeah.
But
They have a weird cult following.
I understand it. I
I
understand it.
know
I
when
actually am.
I took a new job up in Denville, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I was driving up there, and the receptionist at the office, I would go 1 day a week. She would be like, "You gotta bring me Wawa iced tea. I love their iced tea." I was like, "Really? I never had it." So I would buy the half gallons, and
Mhm.
then one day I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna buy 2 half gallons." I bought a half gallon for myself, and now I'm addicted.
And you
So I
understand
get
now.
it. I
Now
get
you
it now.
understand.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things that, like, if you know, you know. Like, that's a perfect example of, if you know, you know. You're like, you've had it, now you get it. You know who else gets it though? The people who support this show financially. And those people include Matthew Serio from Artigiano Serio, Big Al Schultz of New York Woodworks, Tori Decker of Tori Did It, Ed Swanson of Ed's Clocks and More, Jake Drews of Make with Jake, Megan Chris from Onyx Designs Woodwork, Christian Neary of Warren Works, Ken Madden of Mad K Studios, a new person on the list. Thanks for joining up, Ken. Jeff Stein, aka A Weird Guy, Kim and Garrett of Kim and Garrett Make It, Rory Langefeld of RLO Woodworks and DIY, Robert J. Keller, Rebecca Cole of Beck C Designs, Brian Arsenault of the Seven Hills Maker, Lars Coleman of Colorado Multicraft, Dave Bauer of Dave Bauer Art, Nick Birchtold of Birchtold Design Build, Donald LeBlanc of Fun with Woodworking, Jeremy Spees, Mike of Pixels to Prototype, Grant Alexander from the Clamp Podcast, Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, and Billy Polton of Polton Projects. Thank you so much for supporting this show financially, and including people supporting the show financially that aren't on the Hall of Fame yet, because I'm reading it off the website and I didn't have a chance to put it on there. But there are certain people who find a way to donate to this show, even if they're not donating the official way. And those people, like people named Keith Drennan, I really appreciate those people too. I appreciate the support.
I'm here to help.
If you want to support the show financially, you can do it at vincentmferrari.com/support. If you can't afford to support the show financially, I completely understand. As someone who's going through some stuff, I understand that times are rough. Hey, if you got time, throw a review up there. Let people know the show is good. Share it. Tell someone about it. That always helps. If you got a good idea for a guest, I'm open to those too. In fact, I have someone potentially lined up for the next episode that I can't even believe he knows this podcast exists. So that's kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to chatting with him. So we'll see. We're working out the details. So should be the next guest or the guest after. And of course, people are very excited because I mentioned in the last episode that Ethan and I are going to do a little reunion episode. So that's going to be fun.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. So that's going to be, I might have to get someone to host it and just kind of like bring us together and have us talk like those shows where they like, so you guys, what's the tension like between you two? And it's like, nah, man, we hugged at Maker Camp. Exactly. But no, we hugged at Maker Camp. It's all good. Ethan's always going to be a friend of mine. So yeah, I think that's going to do it. Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, my friend.
As always.
I love the Working Hands podcast. I love chatting with you. I love hearing the banter between you and Tony. I think you guys are fantastic together. I will always be, I'm always a big Chad fan. I miss Chad on the show. But it is what it is. Things happen, things move on. Chad's doing crazy YouTube videos now, and I'm happy that that's working out for him. And I'm happy that you guys continued the show without him, because you guys are doing a great job over there. So, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Obviously, we know we can find you on the Working Hands podcast, but where can people find more about you, what you're up to, and what you're doing?
Blackthorn Concepts on Instagram is probably the best spot.
Cool beans. That's Blackthorn with an E, right?
No,
you don't have an E in yours, right? The E is in the resort. Right. See, this is the
resort
problem.
has the E.
This
the
is
resort
the problem.
Spells it incorrectly.
They spell it incorrectly.
I spell it correctly.
Just, I'll tell you what, don't listen to me. Just go to the show notes and click the link for Keith's stuff, because I'm definitely screwing with people's heads right now, giving them bad information.
It's fine.
So
they're not going to find me. They're not going to find me.
Keith's an international man of mystery. But it's no mystery how much I love you, brother, and how much I appreciate. You've been with this show pretty much as long as it's been around, and I have.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to start a podcast, was listening to Because We Make.
That means the freaking world to me, man. It really does. It really, really does. I love.
I told you that before, but
I know, but I still love. It never gets old. Like, I love hearing how much that show meant to people, because it was something that I loved doing, and I'm just glad that it meant something to more than me and maybe the people that co-hosted it with me over the years. So it's really cool when I hear stuff like that. So I appreciate it. That's going to do it for this week, though. Go follow Keith. Go check out the Working Hands podcast. If you have a moment, you're going to really dig it. Tony and Keith are good people, obviously. I don't have garbage people on this podcast. Yet. Or at least I don't have garbage people on now. I've maybe had a couple of trash bags in the past, but things happen. Wow.
It's too bad this is on video. I just made faces. Cut that out. Make sure that's on your face.
That's going to do it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening, however you consume the show. I really appreciate it. I will catch up with you next time. Have a great week, everybody.